Yes, welcome back to the damn channel. Peeps, we're in the damn building. We're here to talk about Mo Salah. Yes, it looks like Mohamed Salah and Virgil van Dijk, to be fair, will be staying at the football club come next season. Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation in and around, both players as well as Trent Alexander-Arnold. But today we're going to be focusing more so on Mohamed Salah and what next for Mo Salah? Because there is a lot of conversation, in regards to what people want for Mo Salah, what people want for the team, what's his best position? Should he stay, as a right winger? Do we move him into a different position? Obviously, guys, let me know in the chat. Let me know in the comment section. What do you think we should do with Mo Salah? Will there be a new role for him if and when he signs this deal for Liverpool? Now, as I mentioned before, according to all the reports that's coming out of, over the last couple of days and things or the last 24 hours, should I say. And to be fair, it's been kind of going on for a little while. A lot of more people and a lot more journalists have been saying that, yo, listen, Mohamed Salah, he's going to sign a new deal. He's going to sign it. Don't worry. Everyone chill. He's 32 years of age. A lot of conversations, in and around that. Obviously, the journalists here, Paul Joyce, Fabrizio Romano, they've all kind of said the same thing, that, Mo Salah is closing in on an agreement with Liverpool to extend his contract. And of course, the club are confident to get that done for him and for Virgil van Dijk. But it does look like Trent Alexander-Arnold might still be, en route to Real Madrid, which is absolutely fine. And listen, look, I'm sure everyone's going to be speaking about it, and I'm sure everyone has spoken about it. And what that kind of means for Liverpool moving forward. Obviously, we know our owners, we know how Liverpool kind of work. Does this have an impact in the transfer window, in the transfer market? Do we sign still a player, to potentially come in for Mo? Are we signing a player to battle with Mo? Does Mo move into a different position? All of these kind of, different kind of things. And I think, listen, in terms of this season anyway, of course, he's having an absolutely brilliant season. I think for Mohamed Salah, in terms of just the type of player that he is, what he's been able to do for Liverpool throughout his, Liverpool career. And of course, this season in terms of the numbers. Now, the numbers have been absolutely brilliant. I don't think anybody, and I've not really heard anybody who's going to complain, at a player who can get you 32 goals and 22 assists, 27 in the league, 17 assists in the league. I don't think anybody's going to complain at that. It's only been 45 games. I think where most people are going to have the beef and battle about a Mohamed Salah is, of course, some of the performance levels. Even in those games that he has scored or assisted in, the goals have almost masked that kind of level, of performance, in terms of how we view it. And I think he is, I would say, the epitome of stats versus performance. I think he literally epitomizes that because it's always on opposing sides. Ultimately, the way I look at Salah, and I've mentioned this before and I've said it a million times, if we're talking about a football player, if we're talking about a guy who, if I had to build a footballer, he would, or if I had to, if I was looking at getting into football, what kind of players would I be looking at? I would, of course, look at Salah because of his efficiency. And and listen, to be this efficient at this age as well, and for this long, there is something in that. So you're going to look at those kind of attributes, as to how is it you've been able to do this for so long? What is it that you do, and etc. etc. The way that you train, the way that you keep yourself fit, and all these all these other, various different things. But as a player, in terms of would I want to be that type of player? Probably not. I mean, he ain't complaining. Do you know what I mean? If he can go on for this long in his career, you're not going to complain. But ultimately, in terms of just as a player, how I like to see the game, the Lamine Yamals of this kind of, the Pedris, the Gavis, and, the Musialas, the Elise, like those kind of silky players. Of course, we all love those type of players, but are they as efficient as a Mo Salah? Probably not, in terms of in front of goal. So there, it's like you've got to almost balance it at the end of the day. And I think with Arne Slot, especially with him obviously coming in over the summer and stuff like that, I think he had a big job on his hands in terms of what to actually do. And we're going to take a look, in a moment, as to the kind of style of play that Liverpool have been playing, obviously with Mo Salah, and where potentially we might see that in the future. Now, obviously, listen, looking here, I mean, these are just the kind of records, the awards, and things like that Mo Salah has obviously got. And I mean, you can see the honor list there. I mean, we look at the the games, 394 games at the time of this video, 243 goals, 109 assists. You know, it's ridiculous numbers. And I think I feel like even the people who get onto Mo Salah, one thing in terms of what I've heard anyway, can't speak for everybody, but I don't think any of them would ever chat to Mo Salah or could ever chat to Mo Salah and be like, well, this guy doesn't even produce. They know he produces. I think even the guy, even people who don't like Salah's style of play or whatever, that you can never, like, it would be impossible. Like, and I do mean, and listen, nothing's impossible, but it would be impossible to deny his level of efficiency, because he's more efficient than anybody else that you know. Nobody else is as efficient as him, you know, kind of thing, outside of the Messi, Ronaldo kind of era in today's, you know, day and age. So when it comes to that, there's nothing you can argue. Like I said, it's always going to come down to, sometimes the level of performance gets kind of put to the side, because he'll score a goal, he'll score a penalty, he'll get an assist, you know, but he might have had a really shit game. And sometimes he doesn't impact games in terms of his actual general play. How he'll impact games is purely just through, again, getting that goal, and it almost being that Mr. Inevitable, being that person that you're like, bro, he's gonna score anyway. Do you know what I mean? So you know, it is what it is, you know, with that kind of thing. And you know, I was taking a look, you know, in terms of, you know, the different kind of like positions and things like that that he's played throughout his Liverpool career. And again, it doesn't really surprise me. I think we've all seen it, you know, right wing, of obviously that's where 98% of his games are obviously going to be coming from. Played centre forward a couple of times as well, you know, got a very good goal record, you know, in their second striker, right midfield and attacking midfield. But I feel like attacking midfield and second striker are kind of like the same kind of thing. So again, interesting to see, you know, in terms of where his positioning, well, the positions he's obviously had to play, you know, for Liverpool. Obviously, being on the right wing, that's his that's his primary position. But being able to play in different positions, is that then an omen for Liverpool moving forward? Is that something that Liverpool, you know, on a slot, is that something that he should potentially, you know, be looking at? Again, in the comment sections, let me know, what do you think? Do you think Mohamed Salah, if and when he does sign this new deal, I don't like to jinx anything, but if and when he does sign that deal, do we see him playing in another position? Or do you think, probably a bit like myself, where he's just going to stay out on that right wing and we're going to potentially build a team in and around that, you know, where we've probably got more capable players, you know, better players in other positions, which can then help to facilitate what Mohamed Salah obviously brings, you know, to the team. Now, obviously, in terms of what he brings to the team, like, it's interesting. Like, it's difficult, but it's also understandable as to why Liverpool play the way that they do with Mohamed Salah, right? I get it. I fully get it. He's the best attacker that you've got in the team. Now, like I said, sometimes the performance levels don't really help in terms of, it's more so obviously in games that we're not really playing so well, and you look to someone like Mohamed Salah. But I think with someone like him, what I always say to people who do bring that up, of course, and by the way, you have every right to bring that up. But what I do say to people is, stop judging the individual for something that he doesn't do. I always feel like I'm not going to judge Messi for not tracking back. Why would I do that? Not in his job description. It's not what he's on the team to do. So why would I get mad when he doesn't do it? Yes, you're gonna maybe get in certain situations. Yeah, you're like, oh, above Messi, you could have helped. But the reality is that's just not his job, bro. And that's the same with Mohamed Salah in these kind of instances. I feel like people rate, or not even rate, but the way that people talk about Mohamed Salah at times, I'm like, I feel like you're talking about two different players. I feel like what you want to what you actually get are two different things. You want the guy who could do this, do that, dribble this, drops deep, picks up the ball, run past six players, beat his man. I feel like, okay, I hear that. That's not wrong to ask for. And I get why you're probably asking for it, because sometimes in some situations that is needed. But then on the flip side, I'm like, okay, so you rarely see that. I'm not saying he's never done it, because he has obviously scored goals where, you know, that have been like that. He scored rockets from outside the box, and that we remember the goal, you know, that he scored against Chelsea. So I get all of that, but that's not really his game. Do you know what I mean? His game, as you guys can obviously see here on the screen, this is his game. His game is, I'm out there on that right hand side. As I keep saying, it's then down to the manager as to what happens really from that kind of situation. If the manager is forever, oh, look, the ball's over here on that left hand side, right? or in one of these. It's over here on the left hand side with saying Andrew Robertson. You can see McAllister potentially, going out to that left hand side to obviously drop into, offer to offer himself to Robertson. So you're like, okay, cool. That could potentially be one pass in. But if the ball's with Gravenberch, as an example, goes into Szoboszlai, we know Szoboszlai, Salah, they try to link up, on that right hand side, as well as Trent Alexander-Arnold, who will probably move infield at some point, or will be a lot more closer in, as the move obviously progresses, right? Mohamed Salah is going to always stay there. It's then down to, say, Szoboszlai, Trent Alexander-Arnold to create that space for him in order for him to pick up the ball and do whatever it is, he's going to do. A lot of times what we'll see is obviously Mohamed Salah, he's still quick. Don't get twisted. He's still quicker than a lot of players. Yeah, obviously he's not the lightning quick he was before, but he's still obviously really, really fast. That ball from Trent into Salah, we always see it. It's a pass that we always see. You can see the runners left wing, the Szoboszlai and obviously Mohamed Salah. You can see run. That's what they want to do. That's what they can do. Especially if Trent gets that ball on that wide right hand side, it's always going to go into that pocket of space. Sometimes I do think teams are very dumb because I'm like, why would you want to play a high line? I get it. At times they want to try and go tight to a Mo Salah. Mo Salah's very, very strong. He's got crazy upper body strength. Sometimes you ain't beating that. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're Dan Burn, maybe, but if you're just like normal, at times you can't beat that. And he's got the pace to beat a lot, probably about 80% of players anyway in that position. So again, it's going to be very, very, very difficult. And I think even when Liverpool have the build-up play, even if it's at the back again with Robertson here, even if it goes into Gravenberch, if it's with Van Dijk, we know he loves to make those switches out to that right-hand side. Mo is always going to chill there. As I said before, the manager is requesting this. The manager is asking for the team to leave Mohamed Salah isolated. That's why at times when people say, oh, but why is he not? I'm like, but the manager's asking him to do something. Why would he then go against that to do something else which would satisfy whatever it is that you want to see? This is where I'm like, the conflict of interest always starts to, come into play kind of thing. And even when Liverpool press, the early part of the season when we were doing that kind of 4-2-4 press, again, Mohamed Salah is going to press in a way that's going to be, I guess, somewhat beneficial to then the midfielders, and then potentially a Trent Alexander-Arnold who's obviously going to then, jump in. But then also Mohamed Salah is ready to then go. This season, I do feel that Slot has asked more of him in a more defensive capacity. I do think that when I'm watching Mohamed Salah, I'm like, yeah, I feel like he's tracking back more. It's still not going to be enough to satisfy everybody, but he's tracking back a lot more, in my opinion, than what he's doing. I don't know what the stats are saying. Just in terms of when I watch it, I'm like, okay, I feel like he comes back a lot more. He will try to press, a bit more intense. I'm not saying it as intense as he did when he had Firmino and Mane there. No, he definitely ain't doing that. But what he is doing is he's still pressing at a level where you're like, oh, okay, cool, fairs. You know what I mean? Let's that can still work, for Arne Slot, of course. Obviously, you can see here, as I said before, again, even when the play is always focused on that left-hand side, again, regardless, Mohamed Salah is always going to be there. He's looking to run in. He's looking for, that kind of run into space. And once he gets that run into space, he can obviously, go and affect the game. And when he does get that ball out on that right-hand side, again, like I said before, it's then down to your Nunez or Szoboszlai in this case, to make those runs, because then he can pick out the pass. Obviously, Nunez is offside, as always. But the pass that he's actually, in my opinion, I think, I can't remember exactly who he's going to give it to, but from here, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I feel like that ball's going straight into Gakpo anyway. Do you know what I mean? Because the space is there. He can make that pass, whether it's a Trevea, whether it's, cut back in and then play it, he'll make that pass, because that's what he wants, to do. And he's this season, again, what I'm seeing more of Salah is passing. I feel like that's something, big up Savage, because he mentioned this not too long ago about, Mohamed Salah's passing has been really, really good. It's probably even improved. And I think it has. I feel like it maybe the quality of pass, I feel like, has improved. I feel like he's always had these passes in his locker. But again, I just don't feel like, when it's like, I didn't need to do it. So you're not going to see it on a consistent enough basis to really put that up there. Whereas now I need to do it because the reality is I've got no one else to help me to do these things, especially if Trent Alexander-Arnold is injured and, has not really been playing and all that kind of stuff. There's literally no one else in the team who provides that kind of ability to, get the ball, into the box or into a teammate. And that's what he provides, in my opinion, for the team. And listen, man, it's one of those things. Like I said, it's a tactical thing. I think when people get frustrated with Salah, I'm like, I feel like you're frustrated at times with the wrong individual. I do think that at times your anger is misplaced. You know, you should be looking more towards the manager. You should be looking at what the manager is asking of a Mohamed Salah. Why is he asking that of a Mohamed Salah? I mean, Salah will turn around, and again, just from a player's perspective, Salah will turn around and tell you, brother, look at my record. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's justifiable. We as fans, of course, we want a bit more because we always want more from every player. You know, if they're not Messi or Ronaldo, we're always asking for more. Neymar, why didn't you come and tackle? And we're talking about one of the best players of a generation. We're still always asking for more of these kind of things. And I think sometimes I'm like, it's not always as simple as that. I do think, again, like I say, you just got to speak to the manager in regards, to these kind of things. And as I said before, this is his style of play now. Yes, he isn't going to beat a man. Yes, he's not going to go on the outside and do tricks and this. I get all of that. And I get it is frustrating to see, but we've also got to understand that as time has obviously gone on, his game has inevitably changed. And once his game started to change, we're now in this kind of situation whereby it's like, okay, I need to play the game a little bit differently. Defenders are becoming a lot more intense. I can't always outpace. Like I said, he's faster than he's faster than most, but there are still the ones who are relatively quick, the Anthony Robinsons, of this kind of world. The guys at the 𝐒𝐃𝐃𝐄s who probably could catch him. You know what I mean? Like if he's not careful, kind of. Whereas before he blitzed everybody. Whereas now I'm like, oh, I don't know. Some of these guys are getting like the Premier League is such a fast-paced league. Some of these other guys, it's going to be difficult, to get by them. So I need to play the game differently. There's times when, I'm watching him like play and I think to myself, he'll take a shot and you think, like the guy, as you can see here with this shot, he wants to cut in and get the ball into that area, right? Whether it's a shot, whether it's a ball just into that area, that's what he kind of wants to do because he's good at doing that. But they always give him time. And I don't know if it's just an aura thing or I don't even know what it is. Obviously, it helps having the run of a Nunes or as a Szoboszlai, Jota, McAllister. It helps having those players making those runs. Trent Alexander-Arnold coming infield, helping out again with the 1-2s and creating that space for him. But ultimately, I always see it like Salah will have like an extra yard or two, and you think, do you really want to leave this guy with a yard or two of, of space? Because if he lets off, could be problematic. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Whether it's a pass or a shot, it could be very, very problematic. So sometimes I do get a little bit baffed when teams do that. But listen, hey, I guess it's just one of those, kind of things. So yeah, for me, I feel like when we're talking about Mohamed Salah in terms of the way that he does play, his kind of, style of play under Arne Slot, the reality is you've got to speak with Slot or you've got to place your anger with an Arne Slot if you don't like the way that Mohamed Salah is playing. I'm not saying for everything, but for me, the majority will lie with the manager regardless because he's justifying why he can play the way that he does play. Whether you like it or not is a different story, and that then just comes down to your own way of consuming, how you watch the game and what you like about the game and etc etc. Which again, by the way, I just want to reiterate is absolutely fine, no problems with it. But the reality is, as I say, on the flip side, I'm like, well, if I was him, if I was him in that, or you were him, in that situation, of course you don't care. Why would I care, bruv? I'm sitting on how many goals, how many assists. I'm the main reason. If we're being honest, yes, others have helped, if you want to say that, but he's literally the main reason as to why we are going on to, win the Premier League. I don't feel like he's going to be stressing about the other stuff too much. And again, Arne Slot might also not be stressing too much when he's like, well, he's spoken about in press conferences, how important Mohamed Salah is. He's the guy that gets the goals and things like that. Bro, I don't feel like it's going to be too much of an issue. Obviously, yes, it would be nice if we can get some other players in who can contribute, but the reality is, obviously, you just dealt with the cards that you do have, and that's where I'm just like, we can stay mad at Mohamed Salah. I'm not saying he can't, and hey, I big up to all the people who want a little bit more from him. I get it. 32 years of age, you're asking for more. I hear that, but the reality is, I don't think you're going to get that. So, just it is what it is with Mohamed Salah. But listen, man, let's take a look, obviously, at what if he played other positions. Obviously, we're just going to be looking at like, if we sign certain players and this, that, and the third, what would that, potentially look like, for Mohamed Salah. So obviously I've got this. So obviously this is if he stays on the right wing, which I feel like he's going to do. I just feel like it's just not going to change in that regards. So you're going to have to change other players in other positions, right? So obviously I've just just players we've been linked with. Let me know in the comment section, of course, if you feel like, oh no, you want this type, whatever. Don't get too focused on the players in the positions, just more focus on Mohamed Salah and as to, what his role is going to potentially be within that, right? So I've got him here. This is the first one, obviously, as a normal right winger, potentially getting an 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒, potentially a _J Simons. We've got 𝐒𝐁𝐃 obviously there at left back. I couldn't really think of a right back, so I just went, with Bradley. But I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, is that something that Slot might potentially look at next season? Is that something that you like? That's really the question. Would you mind that? Because I feel like he's going to stay right wing anyway. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if he's going to stay right wing, so then people are moaning. So the reason why I put 𝐓 Simons there is that people moan at 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒 obviously playing this number 10. I don't feel like he's playing number 10, but let's just, for the purpose of this, he's in that number 10 position. Now, obviously, the job role of a number 10 for Liverpool seems to be different than it is for other teams. But in this system, let's just say the number 10 is just your natural, normal number 10 who basically plays off a striker. So you're effectively playing 4-2-4 or 4-4-2 in essence, right? And you've got 𝐓 Simons there. Yeah, he'll come back in every now and again to help out with the midfield, just to make it a bit more congested. Also, as well, to help at times. But in general, he's going to stay probably, or he's going to want to stay closer towards, say, an 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒 if we were to sign him, or switch with a 𝐒𝐃𝐃, or potentially switch over with a Mohamed Salah, who can then move in to this attacking midfield position, which is what we've got next. I've then obviously placed Mbeumo on that right-hand side, and then, of course, kept to the same 𝐒𝐔𝐁𝐒, obviously up front. Is this another area in which you wouldn't mind seeing him in attacking midfield? Do you feel like, okay, you know what, attacking midfield, why not? Do you know what I mean? We can potentially see that. A lot of people have spoken about that, but big up ENDZ, because he has spoken about this quite a lot, in terms of putting Mohamed Salah in that number 10 position. Again, the job role will have to change of what a number 10 is for Liverpool, because if it doesn't and it stays the same, you can't put him there. Do you know what I mean? And that's where I would then look at Slot and say, or not look at, but it will be more a case of Slot's probably going to look at it and think, now I want 3 midfielders. One's going to be more advanced than the rest. If that's the case, Salah can't play there. Do you know what I mean? Then it's pointless. Then you just keep 𝐒𝐶𝐁𝐒 there, and then just going to have to just deal with what we kind of have. But if not, and you change that role, then having an Mbeumo on that right hand side and then Mo Salah in the middle isn't then too much, in my opinion, not too much of an issue. Again, I'm just going with players that have been linked, obviously, with Liverpool. The last one is striker. This was something that I just thought about. Like, why not up front? You know what I mean? Listen, Liverpool are all about trying to save money. We are all about trying to save money. In-house solutions, as Savage would say, right? So with these solutions, can we not see this potentially? Yeah, I mean, can we not see, yo, you know what? Fuck it. Salah, you go up front. We'll get players behind you. We're going to feed you. So you're going to almost play as almost like a fox in a box kind of thing, where this is where your game is going to be, but you've got license. So we might see Salah and then Mbeumo swapping positions. We might see Salah and a 𝐓 Simons swapping positions. We might see Salah and 𝐒𝐃𝐃 swapping positions. Now, we know obviously Salah don't really like going out to that left-hand side, but he can rotate. That front four, I feel, is a lot more able to rotate than other front 3/4s that we've obviously, potentially looked at. Again, I'm not saying I want this. I'm just trying to show you guys what it looks like on paper. When you look at it, you're like, okay, so this is what it might potentially look like. Again, let me know in the comment section. Let me know how you guys kind of see it. How do you guys feel, in regards, to that as well? What position do you want Mohamed Salah to obviously play in? Do you think that it's better if he, well, I mean, he's going to sign and do it looks like anyway. So do you think it's better if he just stays on the right and we get other players to play in and around that? Or do you think he should, move into another position? Do you think he's going to be on the bench? Like that's also an option as well. I should have put a fourth one. That is also an option where, you know what, next season Salah doesn't play as many games. Maybe Chiesa. Maybe we start even seeing him a bit more. I don't know what the situation, is going to be with someone like a Chiesa. But yeah, man, I just find it interesting to kind of look at it, potentially Salah playing in a new role, for next season. But on the flip side, I'm also like, yeah, but, I feel like that ain't going to happen anyway. So, yeah, it's one of those kind of catch-22s. But listen, let me know your thoughts, of course, in the comment section, people. And we will catch you guys soon. And I just really, 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 again, I have to just stress, just let me know How do you guys see it panning out for next season and for Mohamed Salah? I'll catch you guys soon, man.